Page 57, Village Dance. Village Dance, we're going to use a chromatic passage like we talked about in the video for Spacewalk. Take a look at the fourth line down, the right hand. That looks ugly, but it's really not. You have a C, thumb on the white note, third finger on the black note. That's all that is. They even have the little crescendo and decrescendo for a swell, which is very common too. Same thing on the following line. Other than that, there's not a lot to talk about on this piece. In the left hand, you have your typical chord going. Try and get the two notes, the top notes down at the same time. I struggle with that, but try it anyway. In the second line, second measure, in that left hand, you have an F, A flat. So for the F, A flat, you got to move your hand up into the black note area near the fall board, because the thumb is playing a black note. Okay. In the right hand, you need to follow the slurs, or the phrase. They're not much on phrases, a little bit, but they're slurs. Take a look at the first line, last measure. It's important to slur those two notes. You get that passage other places too, but be sure and do that. The first two measures of the third line. Okay, let's take a look at that. You're playing that so that you're playing the G's with the index finger. So when you get to the A flat in the second measure, go ahead and use your third finger on it. Not because it's a chromatic, it's just because that happens to be the finger there. Okay. In other words, every time you get a chromatic thing like that, you don't have to use 1-3, 1-3 all of a sudden. That's for a passage where you go up and down a few notes. You might do that. Otherwise, don't. And don't forget the accent on the A flat. And then the following G, you put your third finger on that. So, the right hand will move around a little bit. That's fine. You can deal with that. The last two measures in the right hand, the last two measures of the piece, you're down here for the C's, and they'd say put the fourth finger on the E because the third finger's on the note. Use the fourth finger, and then for the D flat, the first one you do a 2, and the second one you do a 3. I like that fingering. I'm a big believer in using different fingers for repeated notes if you can, and here they finally do that. That's the last note in the right hand, the C. They say a thumb. I'd use an index finger because the index finger's there, right? It's up to you. Their fingering is a suggestion anyway. It is repeated, so we're going to play this twice. I like to use different fingers on repeated notes because you're a beginner and going through the book, they throw so much at you anyway. I haven't said anything, but you can experiment and play around a little bit with it if you want. Take a look, for instance, in the first line, the last measure. In the right hand, you have that, and then you have 3 G's repeated. I would finger it, the first G with the index finger, 2, and then I'd finger the second one with the thumb, just to use a different finger, and then the third one with the index finger, and then the G on the next line is a fourth G. I'd use the thumb on it. I'd just alternate those two fingers, because when you get nervous and the pressure is on, it's easy when using the same finger to either the note doesn't play, you miss it, something goes wrong, the nerves get in the way. If you get in the habit of using different fingers on repeated notes, when you can't always, but when you can, it actually helps to make it a little easier playing once you get used to it. It's harder at first because you're using different fingers. It's easier just to use the same finger. But later on, depending on how far you go, you could practice that. Then the last thing I'd like to point out are the 2 staccato notes. In the fourth and fifth lines, the second measure of each line, the first beat in the right hand is a staccato. Only the right hand. If the left hand were a staccato, they'd have to put a dot on those notes too. So to start with the first measure of the fourth line, it's that. They got big bold letters at the bottom. The melody should always stand out. Well, that's what I'm preaching. Bring out the melody. Which in this case is in the right hand throughout. Don't know how much you're struggling here to get this. If you're struggling and struggling, then forget what I'm about to say. But if you're not struggling, you're ready for this. Maybe if you're going through the book a second or third time, now maybe you're ready for it. You couldn't do it originally. But we want to bring out the melody, and sometimes we have to adjust the accompaniment to accommodate that. For instance, at the beginning of this piece, the first two measures, or most of them, is just accompaniment. You get that. You're starting out softly with a crescendo, and it gets up to loud, okay? Right? Well, once the melody comes in, it's the melody that takes over that dynamic, and the accompaniment got to suddenly come down. So it's like that. So the right hand is loud, and the left hand on that last beat on the second measure is suddenly soft. So the second measure is, and it takes some practice to get that. It's really cool once you get it. In the fourth line, fourth measures, the last measure. We'll do the third and fourth measures. In the right hand, you have a crescendo with an accent. You need the accent. Okay? You need the accents on all these things where it tells you to. You get it in the last measure too. So the last two measures in the right hand would be. Let's try this out together. 4/4 time. I'll give you 4 counts. All right, left hand goes here, right hand here, and no pedal. So here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Now the piece is actually supposed to be quickly, and I mean, allegro means fast, all right? You decide what fast is, I don't know. Old people like me, fast isn't really fast anymore, but who knows.